Hey, it's Andrew Huang. I freaking love weird time signatures, and I thought I would make a video talking about how I count them and how I play them. There's 3 tips or tricks. I don't know which they are. They're both. I'm gonna use one example to demonstrate all these tips, and it's a bit of an extreme one. If you get into odd time signatures at all, you probably deal with a bit of 5, a bit of 7, maybe you'll get up to some 9, some 11. Today we're gonna do 19. This is a groove I came up with when I was in Berlin recently. If you saw one of my last videos where I remixed this abandoned military aircraft hangar. If you haven't seen that video, it's really good. I'll link it, you should watch it. It was in this huge hangar. There was a really cool, really long echo that was happening. So I think I was hitting a rock and I was messing with it and just accidentally kind of came up with this thing that I ended up looping later in Ableton. And if you look at which beats I was hitting the rocks versus which beats just have the echoes sounding, you kind of get this accented versus non-accented pattern, and it's 5 groups of 3 and 2 groups of 2. So that brings us to tip number 1, subdivide. And it's not always gonna be as obvious as this example that we're using where it's very basic, there's just accents and non-accents, but you'll find in most music that you're trying to count along to, there is a pulse that you can feel that will often be able to be divided into groups of either 3, 2, or 1. So with this 1916 groove, I am not counting anywhere close to 19 in my head. I'm counting to 3 5 times and then to 2 2 times. 3 is easy to count to, 2 is easy to count to. Never count to 19, just count to 2 or 3 or 1. And of course, the more you do this subdividing and the more you play counting like that in your head, the easier it'll get. Which brings me to tip/trick. Actually, I don't think this is a tip or a trick. Number 2 is just practice. You're probably aware that one of the things that musicians practice is keeping time, getting good at being on the beat. But most music is in basic time signatures, so when you throw something more complex into the mix, you're really counting in a very different way than usual, and that's something that can also be practiced. Getting a really solid feel for 5/8 or 7/4 grooves, that is an additional layer of skill. It's something you kind of internalize and then you switch gears when you know you're entering into that time signature versus the other one. I really want to say like a basic time signature, but I know a lot of you guys won't like me saying that. No. 4/4 is good. 4/4 is for everybody. That's why it's called 4. Last week, I sucked at 1916, but I've been practicing it and now I've got a feel for it, or at least the version that I have where it's 5 groups of 3 and then 2 groups of 2. There would be so many other ways you could split that up. And there's a tricky thing with odd number time signatures in particular. Let me show you. When I'm playing this drum pattern here that's 19 beats to the bar and I'm hitting these accents, these 5 groups of 3 and 2 groups of 2, every other bar, my hands are doing the opposite of what they were before. The first bar, the accents are right, left, right, left, right, left, left. And then the next bar, it's left, right, left, right, left, right, right. The accents are landing in the exact same place in every bar, but because I have an even number of hands, I have to trade off which ones they're hitting each time. Or I could do like a double at some point on one of them, but that often just gets more confusing, especially if you're playing fast. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes, the more you get a feel for these different time signatures that you're practicing. It's practice. So we've got subdivide, we've got practice. The third thing is something that I just came up with, but I have found that it's really helped me, and it's called hit yourself in the chest. And that's what you do. I find like right here is good, like whether you have boobs or not, going higher is better. But actually drumming along here with the time signature count and trying to get the accents, this really helps to internalize the groove because you're literally feeling it. Even if I'm playing drums, which is like one of the most physical instruments out there, I'm only getting the feedback through my hands. But if I'm getting it through my hands as well as literally hitting my body, it just, you really feel it. Surprise, surprise. So one of the first things I did when I came up with this 19 idea was just sit there in my hotel in Berlin in front of my laptop after I had first made that loop, and I just tried playing out that 1916 time, and I was really bad at it. For a long time. But I did it a lot and then I got better at it. Check out where these accents land. little rocky start there, but I got in the groove, and I definitely could not do that a week ago. And what it feels like is that at a certain point, I just know that I'm on the 5th 3 group, and then I switch to the 2. And I know how to count to 2 twice. That's basically like 4/4. And then I'm back to the beginning of the loop. So that's sort of how I approach an extremely weird time signature. And guess what? After getting good at this, playing the guitar part, like doing the drum thing, it's way easier.
I'm living it right without you. I'm living it right without you. I'm living it right without you. I'm living it right without you.
I just thought of a bonus tip. It's such a good tip, it should have been a main tip. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, where bonus tips happen. Time signatures get way easier when there's something more musical than just the counting to latch onto. When I was laying down the guitar, I was thinking more about what the drums were doing. Now that I'm singing, I'm paying more attention to what the guitar is doing, because that's an additional thing that I've been able to internalize. Like the first time in the loop that I play the B, I know that's the last group of 3 before the switch to the 2 groups of 2. Playing along, practicing along with actual songs or compositions, whether it's your own or other people's that are in odd time signatures, that's gonna dig the grooves in even better. I mean, that makes sense. Dig the grooves in, yeah, sure. I'm gonna have one final bit of fun in this video. I'm gonna layer on some drum kit. What I'm playing is gonna add up to 19 still, but it's gonna be a very different subdivision of beats. I've thought of something that's like a 7-5-7. Those are the kind of sub-time signatures that I'm dividing the 19 into, and then within those, the 7 and the 5 that I'm already quite comfortable with, I'm dividing that into groups of 2 and 3. The 7 is gonna be 3-2-2, the 5 is gonna be 3-2, and then the final 7 is also gonna be 3-2-2. Let's do it.
I'm living it right without you. 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 I'm living it right without you.